Talking about the Concours d'Elegance, we have been coming as the Auburn Duesenberg Automobile Museum since the first one that they established. Actually, that was the year that I was hired to be the executive director and CEO of the Auburn Duesenberg Automobile Museum, so we really have been coming every year since the beginning. One of the classes that will be there on the field this year is Duesenberg, so we'll be bringing one of our Duesenbergs. It's a Murphy disappearing top two-door convertible, so you definitely want to see that. And I was just talking to Andy, they've got some other great lineups that you're definitely going to want to see. But what's interesting, Pat had brought up that I was formerly here at the History Museum. I was deputy executive director here prior to moving on to Auburn. But what you may not know is I've been working on this stage for 25 years. I was 15 years old when I started volunteering at the Center for, then the Northern Indiana Center for History, and I volunteered to give tours of the Oliver Mansion. And then when I was 16, I was hired part-time to work in the gift shop, give tours of the Oliver Mansion and sell tickets. This, my friends, is where my museum career started. So this place really means the world to me, especially the mansion. This museum, this was actually before Studebaker was here when they built on in 2004, and then adding on Studebaker to the cultural campus. So it's really exciting to be back here, and I love coming back every year too for the Concours and hanging out with my friends, and I get to stay at my family's house, and we have a wonderful time together. So I hope I do get to see you during the Concours d'Elegance and Kopsche. As you should know, you're here to hear about Frank Lloyd Wright and the automobile. One of the first things I wanted to share with you, though, is a little bit of history about our museum. If you haven't been to the Auburn Duesenberg Automobile Museum, would love for you to come and visit us. We're open 362 days a year. We're literally from door to door about an hour and a half. So it's a nice little day trip, or if you want to spend the night, come see our beautiful downtown, come explore our museum. So let me tell you a little bit about the Auburn Duesenberg Automobile Museum. I've got to turn this on too. We don't want to wear out batteries here because we all know what that's like trying to chase down batteries. All right, so what is now the Auburn Duesenberg Automobile Museum was originally commissioned by the president of the Auburn Automobile Company, Errett Loban Cord, to be the international headquarters of the Auburn Automobile Company and Duesenberg Incorporated. It was designed in the Art Deco style and opened after its completion in 1930. Designed by a noted Fort Wayne architect, Alvin M. Strauss, this building would set the stage for the design, marketing, modeling, sales, and administration of the company until it shuttered its doors in 1937. The building during its opening in 1930 and other 1930 photographs with new owners and their Auburns and one Cord L29 right in front of the building. This building was also part of the Cord Corporation and marketed Cord's other companies, including Stinson Airplanes, Lycoming Engines, and other products. In total, the Cord Corporation would end up having over 100 different companies, and this was all established by Errett Loban Cord. The building was saved by our nonprofit, Auburn Automotive Heritage, Inc., and purchased in 1973 for $100,000, with roughly another $100,000 spent to restore the grand showroom to its 1930 appearance. The museum opened July 6, 1974, and we are celebrating our almost 52nd anniversary as a museum. The museum is on the National Register of Historic Places. It was named a National Historic Landmark in 2005, and one of only 40-plus National Historic Landmarks in Indiana, and is accredited by the American Alliance of Museums, along with the Studebaker National Museum, and also one of only 40-plus, about 40 institutions in Indiana to hold the coveted designation of accreditation. The museum now owns over 125 classic automobiles from the 1890s to the early 2000s and contains over 120,000 square feet of exhibit space, including preserved period rooms such as the original boardroom, advertising offices, clay modeling studio, design studios, offices of the president and vice president, the 12,000 square foot Grand Art Deco showroom, and themes galleries that interpret the history and legacy of the automobile. During the time of the Auburn Automobile Company, the company had dealerships in 89 different countries. So this small town had a global impact, much like South Bend had a global impact as well. And we still get visitors from all over the world because of those vehicles being sold across the globe. Auburn, a town at that time of about 5,000 people, was literally, again, represented across the globe. Visitors today still come from all over the world to visit this automotive mecca that preserves and exhibits some of the finest automobiles in history with an unparalleled collection in its automobiles, archives, small artifact collections, and our largest artifact, which is our National Historic Landmark building, which serves as the home to our museum. So, how do Frank Lloyd Wright, the automobile, and the Auburn Automobile Company, and the Auburn Duesenberg Automobile Museum and Architecture all come together for this presentation? Well, let's dig into Frank Lloyd Wright and a bit about his history. So Frank Lloyd Wright was born in 1867 when horse-drawn vehicles were the standard of transportation. He was fascinated by motorized transportation and saw automobility as being key to eliminating rural isolation and contributing to individual liberty. As the automobile became more accessible to the public, so did Wright's inclusion of them in his designs. He loved automobiles, especially if they were elegantly styled, technologically advanced, and enhanced his public persona. And if you know anything about Frank Lloyd Wright, that is very apt. In 1924, Wright designed the Gordon Strong automobile objective. Gordon Strong wanted Wright to design a tourist destination that would serve as an objective for short motor trips. Wright explored the project for Sugarloaf Mountain in Maryland, where approaching through the neighboring forest an ascending spiral ramp takes traffic to the building's top level where passengers could step out on the roof terrace. Wright conceived it as a terminus for a scenic stop up the mountain for, as he put it, people sitting comfortable in their own cars in a novel circumstance with the whole landscape revolving around them, as exposed to view as they were in an airplane. Buried inside was a vast dome, 150 feet in diameter and housing a planetarium that supported the cantilevered ramps whose curves tightened as they wound their way up to a viewing platform. Wright envisioned aquariums, natural history exhibits, restaurants, and lounges to complete this experience. Although the automobile objective was never built, no previous architectural design had considered the essence of automotive mobility to such an extent. Broadacre City was an urban or suburban development concept proposed by Frank Lloyd Wright throughout most of his lifetime that featured dozens of car-related buildings and features as part of the project, with major concept being the liberation of people from overcrowded cities. He presented the idea in his book, The Disappearing City, in 1932. A few years later, he unveiled a very detailed 12 by 12 foot scale model representing a hypothetical 4 square mile community. The model was crafted by student interns who worked for him at Taliesin and financed by Edgar Kaufman. The Kaufman family are the ones that built Falling Water. It was initially displayed at an industrial arts exposition in the Forum at the Rockefeller Center, starting on April 15, 1935. After the New York Exposition, Kaufman arranged to have the model displayed in Pittsburgh at an exhibition titled New Homes for Old, sponsored by the Federal Housing Administration. The exposition opened on June 18th on the 11th floor of Kaufman's store, and Wright went on to refine the concept in later books and in articles until his death in 1959. Wright designed 3 homes and a laundry facility for a gentleman named Benjamin Adelman. Wright's first project was a commercial building for his laundry and dry cleaning business in Milwaukee in 1945. The 2-story structure was designed for an irregular shaped lot. The design was very advanced for its time. Half of the second floor and the long balcony cantilevered over parking and a drive-through window. The large workroom on the second floor was designed with a plenum ceiling for handling large amounts of steam and was also bordered with a row of clerestory windows. The building also included personal offices, fur storage, and employee dining rooms. Before it was built, they had a change in business plans, and unfortunately, this was never built. In 1947, Wright created a design for a Tucson, Arizona bank, Valley National Bank, and dismayed conservative bankers when he designed drive-up teller windows along a curved rear wall of the building. Bank officials protested the idea, saying the concept of conducting bank business from a car was preposterous. Again, way ahead of his time. In 1949, Frank Lloyd Wright was again at work for Edgar J. Kaufman Sr., this time to design a large parking garage on a lot next to Kaufman's department store. The garage would serve not only the store next door, but a large segment of Pittsburgh's downtown area, desperately in need of parking spaces. This is a quote. The project for Kaufman was entitled Self-Service Garage. The notion of self-service was then gaining popularity around the country. Markets and drugstores were beginning to use it as a means of reducing labor costs and keeping the end product more reasonably priced. In 1949, Mr. Wright created a garage parking system that would be no more difficult to use than parking on the street. The building ascends in a series of double ramps to a height of 6 levels with a basement level for underground parking. The total parking area would accommodate over 1,200 cars. The center is an open court for ventilation, but the sides facing the streets of the block are closed to prevent strong wind currents during stormy weather or icy blasts in winter. The central court holds a spacious fountain pool to help cool and refresh the air. Smaller pedestrian ramps around the court service the car ramps, and the exterior ramp, the descending exit, is open to the elements on the side but protected from above. The tidal filling station was conceived in the mid-1920s when William Heath of Buffalo, a former residential client of Wright's, who was then treasurer of Elmer E. Harris and Company, a franchise of Tidewater Oil Company, better known as Tidal, approached Wright for a filling station design. Wright was enthusiastic, and he believed that as automobile ownership increased, gas stations would become part of the American landscape and that such structures would need to own their original form. Wright stated, "The gas station is rapidly taking the place of our old railway stations." And this building also was never built during Wright's time. Jim Sandora, who is a friend of mine and president and founder of the Buffalo Transportation Museum, also known as the Pierce Arrow Museum, he acquired in 2004 plans and research, including the information between Wright and Heath, and decided to expand the Transportation Museum interior space of his museum from 20,000 square feet to 80,000 square feet, and to build the station indoors where visitors could experience it without worrying about Buffalo winters. So, as Jim Sandoro says, every detail will be as Mr. Wright planned it. This includes the totems that are 37 feet tall. The totems, as Wright called them, were masts designed to carry a decorative sign identifying the Tidal brand. The fueling area included overhead gas pumps that were called gas bells, which were designed by Wright and hung from the cantilevered canopy that used water pressure to pump the gas into the bells and then fuel the automobile. And that is all fresh copper on that building. The R.W. Lindholm service station was created for a former residential client as well. Wright had designed a home for R.W. Lindholm in Minnesota in the early 1950s. According to family members, when Wright learned that Lindholm was in the service station business, is that me? Sorry. Gas station, he saw this as an opportunity to finally have a gas station of his design constructed, and he persuaded Lindholm to build it. The design for the station included many of the features of Wright's earlier unrealized filling stations. It is a three-level steel and cement building featuring a copper-covered 30-foot cantilevered canopy, an upper-level glass-enclosed observation lounge and rest area, and a lower-level service and shop area. In 1985, the station was listed on the National Register of Historic Places and is now about 67 years old and still operating as a gas station. The cost upon completion was $20,000, roughly 4 times the amount of a normal filling station. And this design was originally part of Wright's Broad Acre City plan. Wright began early to introduce the automobile to his architecture. The Roby House in Chicago was designed in 1908 with an integrated 3-car attached garage. The architect and his client were already aligned in their enthusiasm for a new automotive society. Roby had caught Wright's attention because of his car, as they were 2 of the only men in the south side of Chicago with a gasoline-powered machine. The Roby House became an icon of modern architecture, but the automobile-centric spaces Wright added gave it an additional distinction. It was the first house to have an attached garage. Roby said of Wright, "When I talked in mechanical terms, he talked and thought in architectural terms. I thought he was in my world." The garage also included an area for washing cars, as well as a pit for working on engines. In the mid-1930s, when the proliferation of the automobile meant that more Americans could own their own car, Wright incorporated car culture into his Usonian homes. Since an incorporated garage proved to be too expensive for the Usonian home, Wright turned to a more minimalist structure. When building the first Usonian house, the Jacobs House, Wright said to his client, "A car is not a horse and it doesn't need a barn. Cars are built well enough now so that they do not require elaborate shelter." This is what would result in what Wright would call the carport. Wright's architecture continued to show the importance of the automobile. The top left is the carport, again a Frank Lloyd Wright corn turn at the Bernard Schwartz home. Bottom left is the house and carport of the Stephen Hunt residence from 1907. And the carport is cantilevered and adds to the horizontal emphasis Wright incorporated into his prairie style. And of course, on the right, these are the carports at Falling Water. This is where the Kaufmans could have parked a number of their automobiles, including a Hutmobile convertible, Stutz four-door with wine leather, a Sada Fraschini, which is an Italian car with 16 cylinders, a Citroen, which was stored on site in the Bear Run Dairy Barn, and a 1932 Ford Model B convertible, the first one with a V8 engine, and it was a two-door with a tan top. And also a 1935 Packard 12-cylinder split-window limousine. And that car actually does survive and has been fully restored by a private owner in Oregon. We'll actually see that picture at the end. The Max Hoffman dealership in New York on Park Avenue opened in 1955. Though Hoffman imported seemingly every European car he could get his hands on, the dealership hosted his Porsche and Mercedes-Benz operations when it opened in 1955. Glamorous and modern, it featured planting boxes and a display turntable. The real focal point, however, was a semicircular ramp that previewed the Guggenheim spiral while literally elevating Hoffman's beautiful post-war European imports. Now, Wright enjoyed his fruitful relationship with Edgar Kaufman. The civic-minded Kaufman in 1947 enlisted the architect to design a downtown Pittsburgh redevelopment project that Wright titled Point Park, Coney Island, in automobile scale. Everything in it, sports arenas, theaters, shopping, gardens, aquariums, marina, they were all easily accessible by car, and to that end, Wright designed huge bridges, ramps, and parking facilities. Wright stated, "The spiral is so natural and organic a form for whatever would ascend that I did not see why it should not be played upon." As for the Guggenheim, Wright always intended that visitors should take an elevator to the top of the ramp inside and then allow gravity to help them in their gentle centrifugal descent as they admired the artistic scenery. Try saying that again. The Guggenheim may not have been a drive-in museum, though one is inclined to think that Wright would have loved such a challenge, but the smooth forward motion and uninterrupted spatial flow of the ramps are an architectural equivalent to automotive motion. The automobile objective, which is actually turned outside in. Like a highway for art, the Guggenheim's ramps brought Wright's visionary automotive projects to reality. Here, he created a new viewing paradigm informed by our love for life experienced through the windshield. The spiral ramp slopes at a gradient between 3 and 5%, the preferred gradient for garage ramps, and a figure Wright supposedly learned from Albert Kahn, who designed garages and displays for Henry Ford, along with some of the greatest known automotive-related large-scale building projects, including Studebaker in South Bend. And I have talked to staff who work at the Guggenheim and preparators, installers, and curators having to hang artwork on those curved walls going up the ramp and trying to keep everything looking straight. It's very difficult. So Frank Lloyd Wright admired cars which had a unique design and engineering innovations, states Arnold Roy, who joined the Distinguished Taliesin Fellowship in February 1952 and completed his apprenticeship in 1964. He would go on to say he saw the automobile become the greatest agent for social economic, environmental, and personal change that the world has ever known. And another quote from Richie Herring in his book on Wright's automobile obsession, The Car is Architecture. America had become a car culture nation almost overnight and became a country whose people were always on the go, traveling somewhere by car. And these are all Frank Lloyd Wright vehicles. This is a 1908 Stoddard Dayton Model K Roadster from this one is actually a 1907. It was called the Yellow Devil, as people knew it around town. It was 45 horsepower and a car capable of going 60 miles per hour. This was Frank Lloyd Wright's car. This car terrorized the Oak Park, Illinois neighbors of Wright, who was driving in a linen duster and driving goggles, speeding around Oak Park at 60 miles an hour. Wright would go on to own over 85 different automobiles in his lifetime, including Bentley, Mercedes, if you want to say Jaguar, Lincoln, Cadillac, and Cord. Wright was enthralled with both speed and, more importantly, the design of the automobile. Wright's second car was a 1911 Knox Roadster. His car was supposedly stolen, but recovered by police in St. Louis just as thieves were, according to Wright in his revised autobiography, putting a coat of green paint over its beautiful gunmetal finish. Wright purchased a used 1925 Packard Phaeton in 1929. And just to familiarize you, if you're not familiar with a Phaeton, it is a style of open automobile without any fixed weather protection, which was popular from the 1900s until the 1930s. It is an automotive equivalent of the horse-drawn, fast, lightweight Phaeton carriage. Wright secured a major commission for the San Marcos in the desert luxury tourist resort near Chandler, Arizona, and purchased this vehicle on the way back to Taliesin. Wright made a down payment on the Packard and agreed to pay the remainder in installments. He added a trunk rack, new tires, and a tonneau cowl windshield. But according to a personal account by Mrs. Wright, the trip to Wisconsin was fraught with unanticipated and expensive problems. Sounds like classic cars today. In Mrs. Wright's column called Our House, published in the Capital Times newspaper in Madison, Wisconsin on October 21st, 1961, she stated, "He bought a second-hand open Packard, the top of which could not be put up. What if it rains?" I asked doubtfully. "Mother," he answered, "we are made neither of salt or sugar. We will not melt. Beside, I have provided for rain. We will wear raincoats with hoods which will reach over the shoulders and rubber boots. We will be snug as a bug in a rug." So what brings Wright to the Cord L29? The L29 marks a huge leap forward for automobiles. It kicked off a technology we completely take for granted today, front-wheel drive. Before it debuted, no other American car offered the drive layout for public purchase. The lack of a drive shaft tunnel allowed for the bodies to be mounted low on the frame, with the result being that the Cord was no taller than a person of average height. Their interiors boasted flat floors, allowing for comfortable and spacious seating. And as part of the advertisements, you can see here, which was put out by the Cord Corporation, the advantages of front-wheel drive that make it both safer and easier to drive, and some would even say faster to drive. So at the time, a Ford could be purchased for $500, but Wright chose the ostentatious and expensive newly introduced Cord L29 from the Auburn Automobile Company. The Cord's 138-inch wheelbase, streamlined styling, and long hood, flowing 7 feet long from the fenders, and low profile made the car look like it was moving even when it was sitting still. And its inline 8-cylinder Lycoming engine made the Cord one of the fastest and most powerful cars on the road at a cost of more than $3,000. Besides its advanced styling and technical sophistication, the Cord offered something else: the prestige and social status associated with owning the car. Typical Cord owners were celebrities with glamorous jobs and huge salaries who could easily afford expensive automobiles. Edgar Rice Burroughs, who wrote the Tarzan stories, and each of the Marx brothers, popular film stars for their comic routines, owned Cords. And on December 17, 1929, soon after taking delivery of his new Cord, Wright received a letter from the president of the Auburn Automobile Company, E.L. Cord. He wrote, "Ordinarily, I would not presume to make the following request, but I am very desirous of getting a personal report from several prominent people who are owners of our new Cord front wheel automobile." The Cord L29, just random history fact, before it was called the L29 and known as that, it was known as the Cord front wheel automobile. Wright's response, written the same day he received the letter, appeared in a promotional booklet called What Owners Say, produced by the Auburn Automobile Company. Here's what Wright's testimonial stated. "A Cord front drive automobile is as nearly self-driving as a locomotive on rails. I say this having driven the Cord over 1,500 miles on Wisconsin roads. Not only is the mechanical operation of the front-wheel drive perfect on gravel or dirt, but the Cord automatically straightens out all the curves and relieves, by 2/3, the tension of the driver. The remarkable balance of the car as a whole is a guarantee of safety and comfort in all circumstances. The gear shift seems more natural than the trouble. It is a good feature. I became a Cord owner because I believe the principle of the front drive to be logical and scientific, therefore inevitable for all cars." Again, ahead of his time. "But the proportion and lines of the Cord, too, come nearer expressing the beauty of both science and logic than any car I have ever seen." However, kind of funny, in a February 10th, 1935 at Taliesin column, Eugene Masselink noted, "When the driveway at Taliesin had dissolved into liquid mud, the beautiful Cord would sink in up to its axles, and Herb Fritz and the other boys would get out of the Caterpillar tractor and pull the Cord out of the mud." On Monday, November 13th, 1933, both newspapers in Madison, Wisconsin carried front-page illustrated stories about a minor accident on a rural county road. The next day, the Chicago Tribune ran a brief story about the same accident, as did the Michigan City News. This accident involved Wright with his wife, Olga Vanna, and a young apprentice, John Howe. They had left Taliesin near Spring Green, Wisconsin, and were traveling to Michigan City, Indiana, where Wright was scheduled to present a lecture that evening. 2 hours later, the car collided with the Cholas Floral Company delivery truck driven by its owner, Faust Cholas. And when the flower delivery truck driver found out it was Frank Lloyd Wright who was driving the car, he then tried to go after and sue Wright. It didn't end up happening. On January 23, 1935, Wright left Taliesin in his Cord L29 Phaeton on a winter trek to Arizona. The Cord eventually served as both a car and a truck for Wright. Wright described in his autobiography going to the AD German Wholesale Warehouse, a building he had designed nearly 2 decades early, in Richland Center, nearly 30 miles from Taliesin, and loading sacks of flour on the fenders, crates of fruit on the bumper, rump and back seats piled high with everything a grocer keeps. Given such rough treatment, the once gleaming fenders likely were marred by gouges from crates of fruit and the supple leather upholstery torn and scratched from rough use. Wright's once beautiful Cord has become, as he said, a beast of burden. Wright observed that I like the Cord in spite of hell and realize how experiments are made. I make them myself, calling the L29 E.L. Cord's experiments. In the summer of 1936, Wright arranged with a Madison car dealer to sell the L29. In March of 1937, the same dealer ordered a Lincoln Zephyr coupe for Wright. The car included jumbo tires, overdrive, custom Cherokee Red paint, and other extras. In the coming years, he would subsequently purchase 2 more Lincolns and several other brands of cars, including a rare 1937 AC Competition Sports 2-seater. The Cabriolet was damaged in at least 2 accidents, and later Wright modified it, creating a sort of 2-door town car with a rounded steel top over the back seat area, but open over the front seats. The windshield was cut down a bit, and the interior was entirely redone with much wider and lower seats in the back. The new top had no back windows at all, thus the need for side mirrors. Wright also had a couple of half-round opera windows put in it. Wright liked his Continental and put more than 200,000 miles on the car. And at Aldebrass Plantation in South Carolina, the owner, film producer Joel Silver, has two of Wright's Cherokee Red Lincolns, the 1941 Continental Coupe and the 1940 Continental Cabriolet. So I had mentioned Cherokee Red, and Mr. Wright identifies the color variously over the years, but his fascination starts at the Malcolm Wiley house, somewhere between the kitchen linoleum, a shingle stain, and a post-construction rug plan. There are three Cherokee Red colors in circulation at Falling Water. They are Venetian Red, Old Red, and Cherokee Red. Here we see Cherokee Red paint chip from January 15th, 1935, Olds Motor Works Duco paint chart, PPG Cherokee Red ATC-5 from the Falling Water pattern, which is on the right, and the Wiley House Uni Walton linoleum, which is at the bottom. A former curator at Falling Water stated Cherokee Red, which has also been referred to as dark Venetian Red, was said to be Wright's personal favorite. In fact, most, if not all, of his automobiles were painted the same color. Various sources say that the architect saw Cherokee Red as a primal earth color that paid homage to the Native Americans who made pots out of the red earth of the West. In 1937, or the 1937 AC that I mentioned before is pictured here with Wright and his wife Olga Vanna in 1948 at Taliesin West. Wright first encountered the AC parked on a city street, and after examining the car, Wright wrote a note offering to buy it and placed the note under the car windshield wipers. The owner agreed to sell it to Wright and was later invited to dinner at Taliesin West on the first Sunday in April 1948. By the time Wright discovered the car, it already had an interesting journey. One of only 42 of an AC model produced from 1935 to 39, the car had been shipped from England to New York in 1937 for the National Car Show, held first in New York and later in Chicago. One AC expert described the car as the type purchased by someone who did not want to see another guy driving down the road with the same kind of car. The Crosley, like the Cord, was an Indiana-built car and the brainchild of rich radio manufacturer and owner of the Cincinnati Reds baseball team, Powell Crosley Jr. Crosley's car company had headquarters in Cincinnati, Ohio, and assembly plants in the Indiana towns of Richmond and Marion. Considered the first modern compact car, the four-cylinder Crosleys weighed less than 1,000 pounds and had a Crosley radio in the instrument panel. Wright purchased a small fleet of these tiny cars from a Madison, Wisconsin car dealer during the early 1950s. Wright's Crosley fleet saw service most notably during twice-yearly trips between Wisconsin and Arizona. The architect, his staff, and students left Taliesin in Wisconsin each fall to winter to Arizona's Taliesin West, returning to Wisconsin each spring. The trip took a week each way, and the travelers camped along the way. Arnold Roy was one of the fellows who came to Scottsdale in 1952. On one trip, he was assigned to drive a Crosley, and he found it to be a miserable experience. With a wheelbase of only 80 inches, weighing 1,200 pounds, and having just 26.5 horsepower, the car struggled to get over 50 miles per hour, barely keeping up with the cars driven by other fellows. The isinglass side curtains that served as windows leaked and flapped continuously in the wind. Wright typically rode in one of his more prestigious cars, like the Cordell 29 Phaeton. With a 125 horsepower straight-A engine and a 137-inch wheelbase, it was a far more elegant and comfortable way to traverse the country. On one trip, one of the fellows also was assigned to drive a Crosley. These are more pictures of the Crosley, which is also in the museum's collection. And this is one of the 5 Crosleys that Wright acquired from Smart Motors in Madison, Wisconsin. The car was at one point owned by Tom Manahan, Domino's pizza exec, who had an extensive collection of items designed by Wright or owned by the architect. So Wright wrote, "It looked becoming to my houses," in his book and autobiography. He seemed to have a special bond with the Cord. And he wrote, "The feeling comes to me that the Cord should be heroic in this autobiography somewhere." Wes Peters, an early apprentice who remained by Wright's side to be a key figure in the Taliesin Fellowship for more than 50 years, located an L29 Cabriolet through a dealer who specialized in Cord parts, repairs, and conversions. The car's original color had been maroon, but it had recently been repainted ivory by the dealer. Early in October 1952, Peters arranged for the purchase, and a few weeks later, he picked up the L29 and drove it from New York to Taliesin in Wisconsin. Wright's acquisition of the second L29 demonstrates his love affair with the Cord and his lifelong passion for collecting beautiful objects. The AC and Cord attracted public admiration and conveyed an aura of sophistication. After Wright died in 1959, his wife Olga Vanna became the senior officer in the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation, and in 1962 she arranged for several of his vehicles to be sold at the cost to maintain them was a burden for the foundation, which they could no longer afford. In the late summer, in returning from Iowa on a trip with his wife, son, and daughter to visit Taliesin, they saw the car for sale in Spring Green, Wisconsin at a dealership. While touring Taliesin, he learned more about the car from Wes Peters, Wright's son-in-law, and ended up purchasing it for $1,600. In 1980, the car was then sold to a Florida collector who had the Cord restored, including a new paint job. The restorer matched the paint to the decal on the windshield, which was designed in 1958 by Gene Maselink for a music festival in Spring Green. In the summer of 1999, the eventual donor of this vehicle purchased the car before a national auction to ensure that the car would not be purchased by a collector out of the country and shipped away from the United States. The vehicle is now in the care of the museum and was donated to us in 2001. Frank Lloyd Wright's passion for the automobile was shared with his son John and with his son-in-law William Wesley Peters. Along with Wright, both also owned cars produced by the Auburn Automobile Company and Duesenberg, Inc. John would later own a 1932 Auburn, as well as later a 1930s Cord. Peters purchased one of the finest and most expensive luxury cars in America, a 1934 Duesenberg Model J Riviera. The photo shows Mrs. Wright in the back of the car with Peters driving it at Taliesin West. While story has it that John's Cord was destroyed in a house fire, Peters' Duesenberg with rare Brun Riviera Phaeton body has survived, and in 2006 sold to a collector in Texas for $1.2 million. Son John and son-in-law William Wesley Peters continued to own cars by the Auburn Automobile Company. And just for a little bit more about a couple of other, we talked about some of the cars that were owned by the Kaufmans, and I had mentioned that you would be seeing a picture of a Packard that was owned by Frank Lloyd Wright. This one, again, is fully restored and owned by a private owner in Oregon, and this Packard is number 32 of number 36. So Frank's passion for the automobile was seen in the automobiles that he purchased, that he painted Cherokee Red, obviously personalized for himself, owning about 85 or so cars that can all be put together. You can see it in his work in architecture and obviously in his personal life and the love for the automobile. There's a lot more about Frank Lloyd Wright, and even he did design some cars that were specific for Broadacre City. There were, if you look at pictures of Broadacre City as well, little helicopters that flew around the town. They would land on top of buildings. He had this whole idea for this landscape. The model for Broadacre City does still exist. However, Broadacre City was never built. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you. And I am happy to answer any questions that I can. And if I can't, I guarantee somebody from Studebaker and 100% Andy Beckman will be able to answer it. Yes?
How many buildings did Frank Lloyd design that were never built?
Oh.
Any idea of that?
Hundreds. So if you look at a lot of his records are held in New York, one of the university libraries, and there are so many things that just have never been built. Then there are some people, like I said, Jim Sandora, who have actually taken those plans and then built them. Lots of commissions, lots of designs, lots of ideas. Like if you go to an architect now and I have this idea and I want to do this, but maybe the money didn't end up being there, especially around the Depression. Frank was also not very, speaking about the Depression, not very liked for flaunting his cars during the Great Depression. So that was kind of another thing. And whenever Frank got pulled over, he would say, "Do you know who I am?" So we know how that works with the police, right? I think I did that when I was 16 once and never again. Not do you know who I am? Yes?
Could you tell us anything about the cars that he designed for Broadacre City?
Yeah, so, sorry, I thought I had a picture of them. Let me see if I can go back and see if they're actually in that drawing. They were kind of circular cars, almost self-autonomous. Did I go too far? That's... Okay, so let me see if I can see on... Okay, here they are. So yeah, those are the little cars. None of them were ever built. But yeah, those are the little, I've got my own personal name for these cars that I'm not going to say here on stage. But yes, they were never built. And let's see, oh, here you can see the little flying contraptions. They look like almost like little UFOs. So yeah, I mean, the idea was you could just kind of fly around the town, you could land on these buildings, and this was basically what... Doesn't this kind of look like Granger Martin's? You know, I mean, again, kind of ahead of its time. Yeah.
What city is the gas station in Minnesota?
Buffalo. Oh no, so sorry, Buffalo, New York. I was talking about that gas station. The other gas station. Yeah, sorry. Let me see if I wrote that down. And I've looked it up online. It is still there, and you can still go up to the lounge and all of that, but it's different. You know, it's got all the like Coke machines in there now. So many papers. And if I can't find the answer on here, I'll definitely get it for you. Okay, here we go. I will tell you in just... Frank Lloyd Wright. I'm not ashamed. Lindholm Service Station. I am probably going to maybe butcher this. Cloquet? Cloquet. I would never remember that. Yeah.
Okay, and that looks like a coat of arms for a cord.
Yes.
What does that signify?
It was actually never, the family never used a coat of arms. When Cord created the Cord automobile, Cord was also very full of himself. He had a designer create a coat of arms for the Cord family. So if you see that on, you'll see it on the Cord 810 and 812s. It's right on the front of the car. Here we go. So it says Cord right underneath there. So it's a fictitious Cord family coat of arms. So you'll see actually on the front of our building, which again, architecture is very, very interesting. And if you look at unique things, you can't see it well here, but that coat of arms is actually right here on the building. And this says Auburn, and then that's the little Auburn Automobile Company logo. And then above here it says the Auburn Automobile Company.
Interesting.
So yeah, you see those and Cord had it. Actually, there's a leather chair in his office that he also had that embossed into the leather. So he ended up using it a lot.
There's
So the gas station, the one that I was talking about with all the copper on it, that also was a never built project until Mr. Sandoro built it.
Okay.
So he acquired all of the original designs. So they're all built specifically to the way that Wright would have done that. And that is Frank Lloyd Wright. That's our cord. That's the Frank Lloyd Wright cord on display there. This is in Buffalo, New York. It's at the Buffalo Transportation Museum, also known as the Pierce Arrow Transportation Museum. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm surprised that Wright didn't own a 1936 or 37 Cord.
Well, so the Cord was an expensive car. And the first one, he sold it. Nobody knows what actually happened to that car. It could have been destroyed. It's lost to history. I'm surprised nobody's asked me, how did Wright afford these cars? Because if you follow Wright, you see a lot of ebbs and flows and ups and downs in his finances. And what would my dad say? Beer budget, champagne taste. So he actually could not afford the Cord. So the second Cord that was purchased, because he missed the Cord, so that fellow found that one for him. And Wright's finances were put into a separate organization, and Wright was actually supposed to be getting paid a salary. He was no longer in charge of his own money. Then all of a sudden, one day, one of his lawyers sees him arrive, and this Cord, and how the hell did you get this Cord? I know nothing about this. Where did you get the money to get it? And he told the dealership he would pay off the notes and things like that. So what he ended up doing, he said, like always, I'll figure it out. He made his lawyer pay for it in installments by giving him art from his other houses, like these beautiful Japanese prints and things, gave them to the lawyer to sell to make payments on the Cord. So he didn't really have the money at the time, and in 36, 37, still didn't have the money, and the Cord, the 810 and 812 were still an expensive car. Also, remember he said about the L29, Cord's experiments, and he said, I experiment a lot. The Cord 810 and 812 was even more of an experiment. And those cars, when they had to create a minimum of 100 cars for the 1935 auto show, as Eisenhower asked to try and stimulate the economy, they rushed to produce those cars. They didn't have transmissions, and nobody believes that 100 actually were built. Then they got at this auto show, everybody is standing on other cars to look at the 810 and 812 because it's so far ahead of its time and it's amazing. And they got all of these orders for the car and they couldn't produce the car. So actually in Christmas, people were starting to get really mad in late 1930s, or 35, when they ordered the car, again, for 36 model year. So what the company did, said, sorry that we can't give you your full-size Cord, but we'll give you another Cord. They built little bronze cords and put them on little marble slabs with a pen holder and a fountain pen. So that was supposed to tide you over for the time period. But the Cord 810 and 812 was even more of an experiment, because when those cars were rushed and put together, and they did get their trim, known as a lot of them as lemons. They weren't road tested. They weren't quality tested. They were just rushed to be put together to fill those orders. So probably, even today with our cars, our 36 and 37 Cords, our 810s and 812s, we are very blessed and fortunate that we, over the years, have made some very good friends, including those that are in Auburn and the Auburn Cord Duesenberg Club, et cetera, that could work on those cars, because those Bendix pre-selector transmissions are a pain. And if they are not timed right, it messes the whole car up. So these cars pretty much had a black eye shortly after they were delivered to the public. So besides not having the money, I don't know if Wright would have wanted another experimental Cord car.
I have a friend who has one, an 810.
And they're amazing. They're awesome. And I love showing people the pre-selector and taking them out on drives and how that works, and the electrical connection connects to the vacuum system to shift. And first car with AM radio, first car with hidden headlights, first car with covered fuel filler cap, first car with engaged tail lights, first car with ventilated hubcaps. I mean, these are all first in this car in 1936, 35 really. Yeah.
Okay, this is a silly question.
Oh, I love them if I can answer them.
In the Auburn Museum, who keeps the white wall tires clean?
Actually, we've got a great crew. Besides of our staff, we've got a great volunteer crew. We have one guy, his name is Frank Lloyd. Him and his wife Cindy volunteer at the museum, have for a long time. He is our detailing master. So when we get a new car donated to us, or we go to a show and have to get it cleaned up and clean it up after coming back before putting it on display, he's in charge of all of that. So he gets to touch all the cars. And then his wife has really skinny wrists. So she cleans in between the wire wheels, because she can get in between the wire wheels. So, and some great things like magic erasers.
It's amazing, like all the white walls that we used to have,
Mm-hmm.
and they're gone now, but we still have the wire rims.
Yeah, and we buy reproduction tires for our cars that are white walls, black walls, sometimes double white walls on the inside and the outside, but they yellow very fast. Yeah.
How much does an old tire cost now?
It depends on which one you want to get.
Something like that.
So actually, we just replaced the tires on the L29. We probably spent a couple $1,000s, but that includes the tires. It also includes the flaps on the inside, the tubes. So we're not just putting on a brand new tire. It's a reproduction. So the company that we use has a lot of those original molds, which is Coker Tire.
Our daughter was married in your museum in November 21.
Oh, well, great. How did you enjoy it?
We did, very
Good.
much.
And what's nice when you have your event, the whole museum stays open, so you can explore the whole place. Yeah.
I'm gonna add to that, we have another daughter that lives in Madison, Wisconsin, another one lives in Oak Park.
Oh, so you're totally Frank Lloyd Wright connected.
One other thing about your museum, one of two cars made as from blueprints. Dr. Kessling,
Yes,
there's one in LaPorte and there's one in your museum.
there is.
Interesting car that was put together from blueprints.
Yeah, so what happened, the car he's talking about, it was called the Auburn Speedster, so the Auburn automobile car, and I can't remember the year that it was, yeah, I want to say maybe 29, maybe. So they produced this car, and it was supposed to be a very lightweight kind of racing car, kind of a back teardrop shape, kind of bow tail shaped, really no back seat, a little porthole window on the back to keep it even more lightweight. It's got wicker seats in it. Lots of things were done. So they were promoting this car, and then there was the Los Angeles Car Show, and Auburn and Duesenberg was out there, and they had like 900 cars under several tents. And if I remember correctly, it was it was either a badly flung lit cigarette butt or a something from one of the airplane displays. A spark from the airplane display started a fire, and it burned everything. So we've got a big picture, blown up picture in the museum of all of it burnt down and where those cars were, including this little Auburn Speedster. So the company after that never built the car. Then Dr. Peter Kessling from LaPorte, he was fascinated by this, and he said, by God, I'm building this car. So he got the original photos, blueprints, everything he could, took original Auburn car parts and built. Maria didn't see that. I'll buy you batteries. So Dr. Kessling built two of them. So there's one that is kind of a blue and tan, and one that's kind of like a green and tan. And over the many years, since I think he did that in the 80s, over the many years we've swapped the cars. So sometimes we would have that one on display, sometimes we would have another one, and even a wooden buck that he built so you could see the ash wood that was used to build the cars, all the wood that was underneath it. Dr. Kessling passed. In his will, we were left one of the Speedsters. So the green and tan one is now ours. The buck is not ours, it's back at LaPorte, and then the blue and tan one is back at LaPorte.
And one last postscript on that, there was a magazine that actually took his car and road tested it. And it was,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, I have the magazine, it's like one of the automobile classic type things. they, there were some, it's not an exact duplicate, but they were impressed with the people and he was able to.
Well, Kessling said that he probably knows why the Auburn Automobile Company didn't build the car because it was horrible to drive. It was very cramped. Because of it being lightweight, it also didn't have like any sound deadening or anything like that. It was really rough on the ground, but I mean, he did it. He made it happen.